Please be seated. Graduates of the class of 2015, mothers, fathers, spouses, partners, stepmothers, stepfathers, grandmothers, grandfathers, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, cousins, sons and daughters, and all other family and friends of the class of 2015. I would like to welcome you to the 17th hooding ceremony of the University of Chicago Law School. Now, graduation is always a time of looking forward and backward. This year's graduation is no different, but this class is different. Your time at the law school has been full of all the joys and exhaustions that law school can bring. You no doubt have recently been spending some quality time with each other, and I hope you've enjoyed that. The memories you have made here are special, and I know that you will look back at these years as some of the most interesting and stimulating, and perhaps even the most fun of your life. For your class, however, there will always be memories of tragedy as part of your experience here. The shock and the sadness of losing your dear friends, Abby Harper and Jay Brooks, as well as the accident that took place that took Laura LaPlante from us and that left Michael Wassel in critical condition last year. Those events will not be and shouldn't be forgotten. I'm pleased that members of Jay's family are with us today as we celebrate the graduation of the class of 2015. And while today is a day of celebration for you and for your families, we must first acknowledge the tragic loss and pain that we have borne together. We acknowledge the void that exists today, as well as the extraordinary and permanent place they have and will always have in our hearts. So before we begin our proceedings today, let us take a moment of silence to remember Abby, Jay, and Laura. Thank you. Now, as I said at your graduating students' dinner, it's appropriate and important now to turn to celebrating you and your accomplishments. After all, you are graduating in the middle of, shall we say, an interesting time in our country and in our profession. You all arrived here a couple years after the Great Recession of 2008, 2009, and have seen in many instances, you've also experienced the profound changes in the legal profession that have occurred and are occurring as a result of that recession. All of you have seen world-changing events transpire in your time here. You've seen the horrors of terrorism, violence, and natural disasters at home. You've been part of great debates here, both at the law school and throughout the country, looking and talking and thinking about issues of socioeconomic inequality and racial justice. You've seen one member of our law school struggle to lead our divided nation, and dozens of others serving our country with great distinction at the city, state, and federal levels, including our Alumnus of the Year, Jim Comey, who will soon address you. You are taking your degrees out into a world at an extraordinary time, and we here on the faculty are very proud to know that you will be representing the University of Chicago in the world. I met with one of you last week and asked her how she felt about her experience here. She said to me that she would be in a better position to respond in a year or two. Indeed, that is spot on. For 3 years, you have been immersed, indeed perhaps inundated, in the Chicago way, this way of thinking, of being, of doing, that is so extraordinary, and you may not know it yet, truly, how special your experience here has been. But I can tell you, every year I've gone out and I've met alumni, and they make one thing crystal clear for me. This place is life-changing. From the very first day here, they and you began to think differently, to approach not only the law but the world in new and exciting ways. Chicago lawyers are part of a proud tradition. It's a tradition that not all law school graduates share. The tradition that it's not your background, it's not your history, it's not your political affiliation, it's not your station in life that matters. It is solely the quality of your ideas and your ability to express them and defend them. From the day you arrived here, you each became part of this great tradition, and it will stay with each of you for the rest of your life. Now, on that day that you came here, you also became part of the Chicago law community, really what I like to call the Chicago law family. Like our graduates here, I have been preparing over the past month to move to the next stage of my career, more than 2,000 miles from Chicago. For the record, I'm glad to note that unlike all of you, I won't have to take a bar exam at this point. And as I'm preparing for my own move, I've been thinking about what the Chicago law family really means. Now, you have already had to lean on your classmates more than most students do, and more than most students need to do. And you have seen the power of that collective experience and friendship. These friendships, of course, are going to endure, and they're going to continue to enrich your lives in countless ways. Your classmates will be the people you trust in your professional life, many in your personal life, the people you will go to for local counsel, for a consultation in an area that isn't your own. You'll come back to your favorite professors here again and again to talk about new ideas, to share with them your personal joys and your professional triumphs. With any luck, you'll take your new dean's calls when he or she comes to visit your city. Basically, you all are stuck with us, and I know I speak for the entire faculty and law school community and family when I say we are all very happy about that. Now, today is a day of great joy and celebration for you and all of your loved ones. Today, we send you out into the world to become lawyers, lawyers of every stripe. Some of you will become judicial clerks and government attorneys. Some of you will work in the public interest and private practice. Some will become business executives, and some will become scholars and teachers. Today, as we start you out on your journey to become not just the leaders of the legal profession, but you all are going to become the leaders of the world. As you go forward, I hope you do so with a happy glance backward. I hope you take with you from this place the tools that will help you do great things, the friendships that will give you the strength to weather any storms, and the memories that will encourage you to come back and visit often. On behalf of the faculty and the administrators of the University of Chicago Law School, we will miss you very much. Thank you. Now, it's now my pleasure to introduce FBI Director and member of the class of 1985, who is celebrating his 30th reunion this year, Jim Comey. Now, it says a lot about Director Comey's modesty that he specifically directed that I only introduce him with what I just told you. And with his security team standing by, I should probably just back away from the microphone now. But all of you who've known me and heard me, which is basically all of you, know that I will always seize an opportunity to talk longer. So why would I start today by not doing that? So out of deference to Jim's wishes, I won't tell you about his work in the Mandel Clinic when he was a law school student, his clerkship after graduation, or his work in the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, where he helped prosecute the Gambino family and served as deputy chief of the criminal division. And of course, I won't tell you about his work in the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Virginia, or that he served as the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York after September 11th, and before becoming Deputy U.S. Attorney General under President George W. Bush. And I wouldn't dream of telling you about the important work he did in prosecuting huge fraud cases, or the way he heroically withstood pressure and instead ensured protections were maintained in the NSA's wiretapping programs. Because I don't want to disregard his instructions, I also won't tell you that after leaving the Department of Justice in 2005, Jim became the General Counsel and Senior Vice President for Lockheed Martin before joining Bridgewater Associates, an investment management firm. Or that in 2013, President Obama nominated him to serve a 10-year appointment as Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Beyond living a commitment to public service, I'm sure he'd be embarrassed if I told you that he and his wife, Patrice, have been major supporters of the law school, particularly the Spring Break of Service program that enables students to work for nonprofit organizations during their spring breaks, and our public service fellowship program. But I will violate his instructions by sharing with you something that you probably already know, that Jim and Patrice will soon welcome into their family as in-laws a member of your class, L.T. Edwards, when he marries Kate Comey in August. I am extremely honored and pleased today to introduce my dear and humble friend, the recipient of the Distinguished Alumnus Award of 2015, Jim Comey.
Thank you, Dean Schill. I don't think that's a federal crime, but we're going to take a close look at what you just did. Dean Schill asked me to speak at this ceremony 2 years ago, and I told him I would rather wait for two things: to see whether LT's relationship with my daughter Kate blossomed and whether LT actually graduated from this law school. And Dean Schill said, "That's okay, but keep your nose clean for the next 2 years." And I've tried very hard to do that. I loved going to law school here. I was very fortunate to go to law school here, and I mean that in two different senses. One, I was very lucky to get in. And that's not false humility, that is fact-based humility. That is LSAT number, GPA-based humility. I was on the margins. In a post-US news world, I'd have been dead. But I was waitlisted. And so I came to visit this great place with my girlfriend, now the mother of my 5 kids and my beloved wife, and we walked around and she said, "You know, I can picture you here." And so we went over to the law school building and she told me, "Go in and ask to speak to the Dean of Admissions." And I said, "Are you out of your mind? That would be embarrassing, I'm not doing that." And so she sat down on a bench right by that statue that I've never quite understood, the black one. And she said, "I'm not leaving until you go in there and let them come to know you." So I went in, I talked to some nice lady, and I said, "Is the Dean of Admissions, Dean Badger, available? I don't have an appointment." So she had me wait, and I waited a long time. And then I met a remarkable man, and we had a great conversation, and then I left. And shortly thereafter, I was admitted to the University of Chicago Law School. Dean Badger in those days, rumor had it, and I think it's fact, kept in his pocket what he called a number of professional promise admittances, people he thought might work out in their careers, and so he would take those people on the bubble. I was extremely, extremely fortunate to have met him and to have had this opportunity. Fortunate in a second way, because this changed my life. Right? I am a better person, a better thinker, a better lawyer, a better leader for having gone to this great law school, for having professors who pushed me, who insisted on scrubbing my thinking, and to be surrounded by classmates of decency and of rigor and of fun. This place changed my life. What I thought I would do is very briefly, because I'm having flashbacks to the 30 years ago humidity in this place. They did not have fans back in the day. I want to share with you just two brief reflections from my career in public service that I hope are useful to the graduates. And then I want to close by saying just a brief word about why public service means so much to me and why I think hope you'll give it a shot. The first reflection is that judgment is an extraordinarily valuable and rare commodity, and that it is different than intelligence. Intelligence is the ability to solve a riddle, right? To master an equation, to nail a set of facts. Judgment, which is far more rare, is the ability to orbit that set of facts, that answer, and see it through the eyes of others, to move it in place and time, and see it as it might be seen in a different courtroom, in a different venue, by very different people. It's the ability not to graph something that's complicated, that's intelligence, but to look at that graph and say, here's what this means, and how people will react to that. I hire for it, I promote for it, I believe it is essential to the responsible exercise of power. It is extraordinarily valuable and rare. People with good judgment listen carefully with a sense of humility and a constant knowledge that they could be wrong, that there could be another fact that I don't know, there could be a better argument I haven't thought of. They are people who have internalized some advice that Mark Twain gave. Quote, "It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so." Where does this come from? I think it mostly starts with your family, with the way you were raised, and then it comes from making mistakes and seeing how people react to it. Oh, I did this, and that really ticked people off. Got it, got to remember that. It comes from trying to develop emotional intelligence, to see the world outside the trap that is you, to see the world through the eyes of people of very different perspectives. And there's another way in which it is nurtured, by the experience you've just gone through. Think about what you've just done for the last 3 years. It's probably too soon, it's too raw, but think back to what you've done. You have looked for facts, you've sorted facts, you've grouped them, you've tried to reason from them, you've tried to understand motives and biases, you've tried to understand what's known, what's not known. How would this conclusion change in a different place and time? You've tried to confront unspoken assumptions. You've tried to understand alternative explanations. And you've asked and been asked by your professors, so how sure are you of that? Where do you stand with respect to that conclusion? And most of all, you have learned, whether you know it or not, to instinctively, mentally operate in an adversarial environment, in a cauldron where everything you conclude, everything you see, will be criticized, will be cross-examined, will be ridiculed, will be rebutted. People who have learned that way, who have practiced that discipline, instinctively have a courtroom in their mind. They're instinctively able to travel in time to the future. They ask themselves, how sure am I, and what might make this different? That was drilled into you by great professors. You have spent 3 years orbiting facts and traveling in time, whether you recognized it or not. That is a great gift. It is a down payment on judgment, but it is just a down payment. Judgment is something that must be nurtured. Believe it or not, there's the occasional person who gets out of here and doesn't demonstrate great judgment in the rest of their life. It requires constant attention. It requires continuing humility, and it requires balance in your life. The ability to orbit a situation, to exercise judgment, is materially assisted by stepping away from your work. By getting away from whatever it is you're focusing on, by doing whatever you do, whether it's kickboxing or kayaking or reading, it allows you that physical distance to refresh and to better orbit a situation and exercise judgment. And let me put another plug for sleep. I've always known it was important to sleep, but now we got lots of great science, right? What's going on while your brain is offline 1/3 of every day? The neurochemical process of judgment. Your brain is mapping the data you took in during the day, making connections, laying it down to form your basis for deriving meaning and having perspective. Sleep. And then one last piece, love somebody. This great hall is filled with people who are called your loved ones. There will be many others in your life. They are called that because you're supposed to love them. There is a danger in the life of a lawyer. It's get-back-itis. It's the sense that I've got this thing to do, so I will get back to fill in the blank. My kids, my girlfriend, my boyfriend, my parents, my siblings, the people I care about, I'll do this thing, then I'll get back to it. There is no getting back. They will not be there when you turn to go back. You must fight to achieve a balance in your life. You must fight for the space to love somebody. It's the right thing to do. Very good for protecting judgment. It refreshes you mentally, refreshes you physically, allows you to orbit in a better way. So please love somebody. The second reflection, very briefly, is that the ability to say no, particularly under great pressure, is essential to the life of a lawyer, especially one working in public service. This reflection is aimed mostly at lawyers who work in government, but I think it is relevant no matter what kind of law you're going to practice. Frankly, the ability to say no in a good way is important if you're going to raise children as well. It can be very, very hard to be a conscientious attorney working in government, especially when it comes to counterterrorism and warfighting. It is not because you won't work with great people. You will. You will work with people who spend every single waking hour trying to protect people and to save lives. It will be difficult instead, not because of the people, but because the stakes couldn't possibly be higher. Because you're likely to hear these words: if we don't do this, people will die. And you can supply your own this. If we don't collect this type of information, if we don't extend this authority, if we don't use this technique, people will die. It is extraordinarily difficult to be an attorney standing in front of the freight train that is the need for this. Those lawyers standing on those tracks don't want people to die. In fact, they have joined organizations. They have taken oaths as part of those organizations for the very purpose of saving lives. But it's not that simple. Although during times of great crisis, at times of great threat, it can surely seem very simple. But lawyers know, or should know, better than anyone, that it's never that simple. At the outset, lawyers know what you've just spent years learning. We are a nation of laws. You have chosen a profession that internalizes that truth, and when you join the government, you not only have been trained to understand that the rule of law is the bedrock of this great nation, but you took an oath to support the Constitution of the United States. Lawyers know that there may be agonizing collisions between the duty to protect and the duty to the Constitution and rule of law. When they encounter those moments of collision, and they will come, I hope those lawyers are aided by judgment, by an ability to travel in time and picture the future, to transport themselves to another place in front of an imaginary fact finder in an environment very far from the storm of crisis and tension, and look back on the decision they're about to make. They will be aided immeasurably by the judgment you have spent years developing and that I hope you will nurture. They must be able to imagine that they won't be alone in that future calm, well-lit room, a room blazingly lit by hindsight. With them will be the reputations of their great institutions that will be harmed for years by scandal and abuse of authority. That lawyer is the custodian of a great deal. The custodian of a personal reputation for sure, but more importantly, the custodian of institutional reputation, and most importantly of all, the custodian of the Constitution and the rule of law. That lawyer must never, ever lose sight of the obligations of that custodian. It is the job of a good lawyer to say yes. It is as much the job of a good lawyer to say no, and no is much, much harder. No must be spoken into a storm of crisis and tension, with loud voices all around and lives may be hanging in the balance, and it must be spoken in competition with the voices of other lawyers who may not have the courage to echo it. It takes more than intelligence, more than a sharp legal mind to say no when it matters most. It takes moral character. It takes judgment. It takes an ability to see the future. It takes an appreciation of the damage that will flow from an unjustified yes. It takes an understanding that in the long run, government under the law is the government so many have died for. So those are my two reflections about judgment and about the importance of no. And so let me just leave you briefly with some words about public service. I have left government service twice. Each time it left a hole in my life. The first time is when I moved from New York with my family to Virginia, and there was a hiring freeze, and I couldn't get into the government. So I went to a law firm, big law firm, and they brought me matching furniture, which I'd never experienced before, and I had a parking space, and they made me a partner, and I was making good dough, and I was living in a nice place, and I had colleagues that I liked, and there was something missing. And it was my wife, Patrice, who noticed it first. She said, "What's wrong with you?" Something she says in all different contexts, but she said, "What's wrong with you? Right, we have a 5-bedroom colonial we paid $252,000 for. Right, we got great schools. You've got a great job. You've got matching furniture. What is wrong with you?" And I said something that seems obnoxious and corny, but I said, "You know what it is? I miss having a job with moral content. I miss getting up in the morning and being part of trying to do something good for other people. Once you have done that, it becomes addictive." Now look, public service can be very hard on your credit cards and a lot of other things. It can be even harder when you look over at friends and colleagues who are making all kinds of dough and making it in jobs that are prestigious. But at times like that, I hope you will remember words like those that Albert Einstein spoke. He said this to young people: "Try not to become a person of success, but rather try to become a person of value." If those friends making all that dough in those prestigious jobs never take the chance to represent the poor or to protect old people from predators, they may have found success, but they will have missed real value, and that's a tragedy. The many personal responsibilities of life can make it hard to do public service. It can make it very hard to do for an entire career. But I quietly ache for my classmates who never even tried it when they could have, or who don't stay with it when they could afford to because of the siren song of some prestige. Augustine wrote, "Human honor is smoke which has no weight." It would be an awful thing to get to the end of this short life and realize you have accumulated the smoke of success, but nothing of real value. And let me close with my most depressing piece of advice for you, which is that you periodically imagine yourself about to die. I hope in your imagination and in reality you are old and gray. And from that vantage point, look back and ask this question: who do I want to have been? Because if you ask it that way, the stuff that obscures your view, living life in the normal way forward, human honor, prestige, money, cars, houses, boats, all of that stuff is stripped away, and what matters comes into view. Everybody's answer will be different. For me, the answer is I want to have been someone who had quality relationships with the people around me. I want to know my children, their children, and God willing, my children's children's children. And I want to be somebody who, with whatever gifts I have, with the great training I got, if I had the chance, took it to try and do something for people who needed me. The rest is smoke. Whether you see it now or not, this great university, this amazing law school has prepared you well to see through the smoke and to be people of value. I hope you find work you love. I hope you live lives filled with laughter and joy and the love of those around you. And I hope you continue to be part of this extraordinary Chicago family. Congratulations and good luck.
It's now my enormous honor and my pleasure to introduce to you your faculty speaker, Professor David Strauss. Now, I know that to our newly minted graduates, and indeed To anybody who has graduated from the law school over the past 30 years, you really don't need to hear an introduction for David Strauss. But since some of you didn't actually graduate from this law school or attend this law school, I'd like to provide you with a little background information. David Strauss is celebrating his 30th year on our faculty this year. He is the Gerald Ratner Distinguished Service Professor of Law and one of the nation's leading authorities on constitutional law. He graduated from Harvard Law School, after which he clerked for Judge Goldberg on the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. He has served significant time in the public sector in the Office of Legal Counsel and Solicitor General. He has argued 18 cases before the United States Supreme Court, 5 of them while on our faculty, and has filed more than 40 briefs on the merits in front of the Supreme Court, 15 of them while on our faculty. Now, David is the author of dozens of articles on constitutional law and a recent, extraordinarily influential book entitled The Living Constitution. He's also been an editor of the Supreme Court Review for more than 25 years. David is well known as an exemplary professor. He's received the annual teaching award 5 separate times, which is a record by a considerable margin. In fact, his teaching evaluations are really quite extraordinary. I'd like to share with you, partly because I think they're illustrative, partly because I enjoy embarrassing people, I'd like to share with you what a few members of the JD class of 2015, a few of you, wrote about Professor Strauss after having him in Elements of Law. One of you said, quote, "He elicited responses from us that we might not have even known we had in us," end quote. Another purported, quote, "To my mind, Professor Strauss epitomizes the ideal professor, one who shares a wealth of knowledge, engages students, encourages differing but well-reasoned opinions, is passionate about education, and is very accessible," end quote. And a third said, "Excellent says it all." A fourth, "He is such an inspiring and amazing professor, and I feel really privileged to have been his student." Well, I feel really privileged to have been David's dean and privileged also to introduce him to all of you. I'd like to give you Professor David Strauss.
Thank you, Mike, for that very generous introduction that succeeded in its effort to embarrass me. As Dean Schill told you a little bit earlier, this is his last graduation as the dean of our law school. But great leaders of institutions do work that lives on after them. And all of us here today, we're all members of the law school community, and we are all very much in Mike's debt and will be for a long time to come for everything he has done for us. But this day is about celebrating you, all of you who are graduating, your families and friends who are with you today in person or in spirit and have been with you throughout. People who graduate from this law school, and I mean this without exception, have all been so successful in so many ways that it would be easy for you, I think, to kind of take your achievements for granted as something you're accustomed to and to think your success is not a big deal. But what you've accomplished is a big deal. So I hope while you're in the middle of all the events and of looking after your guests and of making all the arrangements and going to all the celebrations, I hope you'll take a second to reflect on how much you've accomplished, both here and in your lives so far. Now, I'm sure this is not the end of your success. You'll do more great things in the future, too, but for nearly all of you, this is the end of at least one chapter of your lives, because this is probably your last graduation. Some of you have been in school for as long as you can remember. Others of you have spent some time, maybe quite a bit of time, outside of school doing other things. But for all of you now, or nearly all of you, school's out. School's out forever, probably. And maybe you haven't thought of yourself as a kid for a while, but now, for sure, you're not kids anymore. You're lawyers, or at least you're going to be working with law in some way. So, let's think about something that was said by Charles Lamb. Charles Lamb was a late 18th and early 19th century British poet and essayist who was born and raised around lawyers, and he seems at times not to have had a high opinion of them. Charles Lamb said this. He said, "Lawyers, I suppose, were children once." So you get the idea. Being a lawyer is more or less the antithesis of being a kid. Children are carefree and full of life and energy and promise. And lawyers are cynical, jaded, overworked, joyless, beaten down drones. Right? That's the image, right? Well, here's the thing. If that's what Charles Lamb meant, I think he had it backwards. I think if you want to be a successful lawyer, successful both in your profession and in your life, you have to keep the kid inside of you alive. Now, part of this actually has to do with just the content of the law itself. When my own children were little, it occurred to me that you could teach the entire first-year law school curriculum if you spent just one nerve-wracking afternoon with my daughters. So, let me try to explain. There's, Daddy, you promised contracts, right? Then there's, she hit me. It was an accident. I don't care. Torts, right? Intentional torts, negligence, strict liability. I'm telling, a fair approximation of criminal law. That's mine. Give it to me. Property. Be quiet. It's my turn to talk. The essence of civil procedure. And although it's not a first-year course here, there's my own main subject, constitutional law. No fair. Now, obviously, if it were all that simple, your legal education would have looked a lot different. You wouldn't have had to put up with me and my colleagues. You wouldn't have gotten called on. You wouldn't have to do all the exams and all the papers and all of that rigmarole. And more seriously, I don't have to tell you that the law has its share of perverse or weird or even destructive features. But we can't let that obscure the fact that the law is ultimately about trying to make sure that people's lives are improved and that they are treated fairly and decently and respectfully in ways that even children understand. So that while the law might be very complicated and very sophisticated, the highest ideals of your new profession are really not so complicated after all. And one way to honor those ideals is to make sure that you do what lawyers can do maybe better than anyone else, which is to stand up to the bullies and to the thoughtless or even abusive authority figures, because, as you know, bullies show up in adult life just as surely as they do on the playground. The second thing that being a lawyer has in common with being a kid has to do with curiosity. I think law is a great profession for curious people. You can't do your best for your clients if you don't understand what they're doing, and clients do all kinds of things. Some of them interesting in a not so good way in the sense of, well, that's interesting. But some of them just plain interesting. So depending on what you do as a lawyer, you might deal with software engineering one day, healthcare the next day, and a municipal zoning dispute after that. You can engage with questions that might not be strictly legal, policy or strategy questions in the government, or in business, or in the not-for-profit sector, questions that might be really difficult but are definitely not boring. Or you might specialize in a field and learn so much about it in a short period of time that you can work side by side with people who have spent their entire careers in the area. And I should say, if you represent people who have not had the privileges many of us have had, you might find that you learn things from them in ways that you could not have imagined. So being open to learning things, and if need be, looking for new ways to take advantage of the opportunities a legal education offers you to find things that'll keep you curious, keep you interested and inquisitive like a kid, that's a way of making sure you're not one of those people Charles Lamb was warning us about. Then there's a third part of your inner kid that you should never leave behind. And that's the part that asks questions, and asks questions without worrying about whether the alleged grown-ups will think the questions are naive or embarrassing. This is some of the things that Director Comey spoke so eloquently about when he talked about a lawyer's responsibility to say no. All of us who teach have the experience of people coming up after class and beginning by saying, "This may be a stupid question, but..." When you hear that, actually, it usually means it's a pretty good question, because it's coming from someone who's been thinking hard and for whom something is just not clicking. And that means, if you're a teacher, you have to explain it better. One of the most important things we hope you'll take away from here really has nothing to do with learning a lot of law. It is being willing to ask a question when things aren't quite clicking. Being willing to ask the question that no one else is asking because they're afraid to ask the quote-unquote stupid question. If something is nagging at you, something just doesn't seem to make sense, something that just seems wrong, something everybody else in the room is assuming, but you don't understand why they're assuming it, do what a kid would do. Ask why. I think it's actually not an exaggeration to say that a lot of misfortune in human history could have been avoided if only grown-ups had been more willing, like kids, to ask questions without being afraid of looking dumb or naive or like someone who's not a team player. So, school's out, and you're not kids, but moving on doesn't mean leaving everything behind. It means keeping alive what is best from your past, best from here, I hope, and the best from the other phases of your lives. And yes, we were all children once, and in the right ways, I hope we always will be. Good luck to you all, and the warmest congratulations for everything you've done and everything you will do.
Thank you, David. And now we're going to move to the conferral of diplomas and the hooding of the graduates of the class of 2015.
Dean Schill, it is my honor to present these students who have completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the law school. They have been awarded the degree of Master of Laws by the Board of Trustees.
I congratulate these graduates on the successful completion of the program of advanced study in the law school, culminating in the degree of Master of Laws.
Will the graduates please come forward to receive your academic hood and then your diploma as I call your name. Terazita Acedo Betancourt. Ferhat Afkar. Masaaki Ono. Kritika Ashok. Masayuki Otsuma. Thomas Barnwell Ayers. Vanessa Bertonia Felicio. Maria Cecilia Canipa Ole Acha'a. Alexander Carvele O. Pinto Rios. Kansua Cheung. Calvin Tilup Chui. Leonardo de Jabreo Birchal. Marcelo de Antoniano. Thibaut Peter Linda Nelson Dibula. Rafael Tor Damora Hebel Hocha. Astrid De Winner. Carla Dokoto Elo Barcelona. Ban Dong. Vitor Fernandez J. Daurujo. Chuan Gao. Mateo J. Guspero. Luisa Godinez Puch. Adi Greenapple. Bashuk Guksu Gerbus. Carl Oscar Henning Sebastian Holion. Flavia Jardim del Oliveda. Jose Raul Hasso Perez. Masakazu Karakawa. Jaco Kasperi Korpelainen. Fabian Causa. David Emilio Kuraiwa Honma. Hosuk Lee. Raquel Lucas Eraith. Jere Lua. Roberto Luciana Lupini Pinzani. Miguel Angel Luque. Francis McNamara. Mark Milan. Sanjita Megunten. Alan Jose Muster. Jose Antonio Nagera Vati. Takahiko Oguma. Giona Pacifico Henna. Esteban Perez Medina. Arturo Poblete Castro. Victor Domingo Poblete Otozar. Alfredo Ramirez Pabon. Igor Marcel Homas Finzi. Weja Rao. Jeremy Bezel Record. Kawi Heizenji Miyanoki. Christoph Michael Rita. Nicholas Rivera Montoya, Renato Rodriguez Hushki, Bauanetis Hernan Rodriguez Velasquez, Patrick Charlie, Fritz Nicholas Schuckmann, Philippe Christopher Seiler, Natalia Ali Paula Ghislaine Schmuha, Quentin Paul Soave, Fernanda Marie Sonaki, Shane Jeffrey Stewart, Yen Lu Tao, Jun Jun, Susan Iqualis Mosquera, Lauren Willen, Kaio Yamamoto, Gilad Yanev, Alessandro Zanini, Feng Zhao, Xuan Zheng. Congratulations to the LLM class of 2015. Dean Schill, it is now my honor to present this student who has completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the law school. This student has been awarded the degree of Doctor of Jurisprudence by the Board of Trustees.
I congratulate this graduate on the successful completion of a program of advanced study in the law school, culminating in the degree of Doctor of Jurisprudence.
Zhenling Chen.
Dean Schill, it is my honor to present these students who have fulfilled all of the requirements prescribed by the faculty of the law school to qualify them for the profession of law. They have been awarded the degree of Doctor of Law by the Board of Trustees.
I congratulate these graduates on the successful completion of a program of study at the law school, culminating in the degree of Doctor of Law.
Will the graduates please come forward to receive your hood and then your diploma as I call your name? Mateo T. Aceves. Andrew Charles Adair. Andrew M. Adair. Viviana Helen Aldous. Farida Arrogondade. Tabitha J. Atkin. Ani Avagyan. Michael K. Ballou. Louis Cushing Balaka. Rhiannon N. Batchelder. Nora Estefania Becerra. Benjamin Andrew Berkman. Elpitha Batondo. Catherine B. Rachel Alana Block. Paige D. Brady. Blair Rebecca Bradford. Corey Keenan Brady. Matthew J. Brinks. Peter Jacob Brody. Peter is being hooded by his father, Michael Brody, a member of the law school class of 1983. Benjamin D. Brooks. William W. Booker. Joshua Hart Burdey. Mary Caitlin Burke. Philip Joseph Ainsworth Caruso. Nicholas Angelo Caselli. Robert Catmull. Daniel Wan Ho Cho. Kendall R. Coates. Ronnie J. Cohen. Fabiana Cohen-Levy. Sean Patrick Collins. Emma Jane Conradi. Laura Kathleen Conley. Nicholas Stephen Dufault. Henrik Dumanian. Matthew Thomas DeWalt. Christopher P. Eby. Troy Allen Edwards, Jr. LT is being hooded by his future father-in-law, James B. Comey, Jr., a member of the law school class of 1985. Andrew L. Corey. Daniel Scott Emis. Daniel A. Epstein. Paige Ashley Epstein. Siobhan M. Fabio. Meg E. Fasulo. Evan M. Feinauer. Judson Robert Finnegan. Mario A. Fiore. Paul J. Formella. Alan Benjamin Friedman. Sonia Elizabeth Fulop. Catherine Ann Garceau. Leor A. Geft. Monica Gahosh. Jacqueline Ann Giannini. Asia Farah Mirza Glover. Jessica Cassandra Gonzalez. Brittany E. Gorin. Alex M. Grabowski. John Joseph Grine. Sarah Catherine Haley. Daniel Nolan Hammond. Dennis N. Harper. Drew Colin Harris. Alexander D. Hagood. Caroline E. Henry. Sarah Elise Hirschman. Alexis C. Holmes. Stephen Douglas Hoying. Benjamin W. Hudgens. Thomas Orlando Huyn. Kara Nicole Engelhart. Whitney Marie Issing. Erica Abra Jaffrey. Jackie Larissa Jacob. Molly M. Jameson. Miles Hovicki Johnson. Ronald Cecil Jones II. Sarah Kang. Samita Thaseen Khan. Chang Ho Kim. Clara B. Kim. Matthew B. Kugler. Lee Rochelle Laksamana. Lyle Benjamin LeBlanc. Annika J. Lee. Dong-Hoon Lee. Jeffrey Paul Levine. Ling Feng Lee. Ian Scott Lindsay. Ian is being hooded by his father, Sean Lindsay, a member of the law school class of 1990. Miles R. McDonald. Thomas Malinowski. Timothy A. Markey. Christina Crane Mathias. Vasily Mayer. Catherine L. McLean. Jeffrey S. McIntosh. Matthew M. McKay. Tammy Lee Mickle. Justin Alphonse Mercurio. Rachel Lori Miller. Javon Errol Mitchell. Abigail Bear Molitor. Timothy Gi-Hoon Moon. Brandon T. Moore. Chad Drexler Morin. Zachary Sweet Moskowitz. John Patrick Moynihan. Sean L. Mumper. Sarah Elizabeth Newman. Jacqueline Maria Newsom. Julianne Thieu Nguyen. David S. Nimmons. Michael J. O'Brien. Yasamine Nicole Olumi. Jeffrey S. Olshan. David G. Pillay. Alex Atticus Parkinson. Alex is being hooded by his wife, Catalina Santos Parkinson, a member of the law school class of 2015. Catalina Santos Parkinson. Catalina is being hooded by her husband, Alex Parkinson, a member of the law school class of 2015. Stephen M. Payne. Catherine Marie Peasley. Sarah Beth Peel. Srinija Pernankil. Scott Robert Plecky. Jonathan Nathaniel Powers. Joshua E. Reel. Stephen Isidore Richer. Rebecca Rose Rickett. James I. Robinson. Mark Victor Rowan. Keiko Elizabeth Rose. Edwin Alexander Rosenfield. Alex is being hooded by his father, Andrew Rosenfield, a member of the law school class of 1978. Joseph Roth Rosner. Joe is being hooded by his mother, Martha Roth, the Dean of the Humanities Division. Kason Baker Ross. Joshua A. Ruff. Cameron Charles Russell. Christopher Wayne Ryder. Angelique Marie Salib. Joseph C. Schrader. Daniel J. Schufrider. Josephine M. Schulte. Sarah J. Schultes. Olga Sergeyevna Vinogradova Schweer. Jillian P. Seaman. William Morris Siegel. Anthony Ray Sepulveda. Michaela R. Shaw. Camille Maria Shepard. Lindsay Lee Short. Daniel A. Cito. Caitlin Patricia Slider. Philip Daniel Smoke. William Joseph Smolinski. Samuel Gregory Stucker. Kelsey Nicole Sullivan. Lauren C. Swadley. Alexandra Marie Tate. Deepa Thimapaya. Ian J. Todd. Daniel Chester Torin. Julia Linz Trotta. Gregorius Sonas. Amy L. Tuhig. Yasmina Vizovich. Patrick J. Valenti. Daniel Vinson. Ryan W. Wallenstein. Catherine T. Walling. Christopher James Washington. Chris is being hooded by his brother, Valdemar Washington II, a member of the law school class of 2015. Valdemar Luther Washington II. Val is being hooded by his brother Christopher Washington, a member of the law school class of 2015. Laura Marie Watson. Laura is being hooded by her brother Bill Watson, a member of the law school class of 2014. Raleigh G. Williams. Kira Katrina Wilpone Jordan. Stephen John Winkleman. David John Winkler. Carol M. Wurzelbacher. Joyce K. Yoon. Sunha Yoon. Kevin P. Zimmerman. Louis Brandon Liss. Congratulations to the JD class of 2015.
Congratulations to the class of 2015. Now this concludes our 17th diploma and hooding ceremony. I now invite you all back to the law school for a reception in honor of our graduates. Now one thing to keep in mind is that the Social Sciences Division is coming right in as soon as we go out. So if you wouldn't mind, as soon as you leave the Rockefeller Chapel, keep going and make room for them as they walk in. So I look forward to seeing all of you back in the law school, and again, congratulations to our great class of 2015.